Hey guys, it's Ben. Just coming on here to do a video for the installation of a wheel hub bearing assembly from Moog. Now, this is a whole bearing and wheel hub assembly. It's quite easier just to change the whole thing rather than trying to change the bearing itself. I've used Moog a few times and changed a few over the past couple of years. And I'm going to show you the easiest way for doing it. So that pretty much anybody can do it, even a DIYer. Somebody that has general knowledge can do this. Today I'm changing it on a 2011 Jeep Grand Cherokee. These are vehicle specific, so you'll have to put in your vehicle information to get the proper one for your vehicle. So first things first, you got to jack up the car, take the tire off, use a jack stand for safety, and then after that I'll come back. Okay, so now that's jacked up, I got a jack stand on there for safety. Took the tire off. So now you need to remove the caliper and the rotor. So you'll have to take the bolts off the back of the caliper, remove the caliper, suspend it up so it doesn't get caught or kinked with the lines, and remove the rotor. If the rotor is stuck on there a little bit, best thing to do if you're going to keep the rotor is use a rubber mallet instead of a regular hammer and hit on the rotor to get that off. I'll show you when I get to that point. So now you want to remove the two bolts to hold the caliper assembly on. Once you remove those two bolts, there's one on the bottom and one on the top. You want to support this with a bungee cord on the top mount here so you don't end up kinking and damaging the lines. Now what you need to do, once you remove the rotor, you need to remove the nut that holds the CV axle on. For this one it's a 32 mil, and once you remove that, you want to bang the CV shaft in to free it up. And then I'll get to the next point where you got to remove the bolts on the back. There's a couple of bolts back here. There's 3 bolts to hold the wheel hub on. And when we get there, I'll show you what you do. You want to lightly hammer that so that you can then push it freely with your palm of your hand or your finger. You see that's moving there now. So that's free from the wheel hub. And then you have to remove these 3 bolts in the back. Okay, now I've got all the 3 bolts on the back of this wheel hub assembly free. I haven't taken the bolt out, but it's free from the wheel hub. The nuts off the CV axle on the front. The easiest way to remove this hub assembly, because this hub assembly, it's going to be corroded inside here and it's going to be stuck in there. Now, we've used slide hammers in the past, and then hammered it with a hammer big sledge and using a slide hammer and worked on it for a long time to get it out. But the easiest way I've found is when you buy the whole hub assembly, it comes all with new studs, wheel studs. So what you want to do is you want to knock out 2 wheel studs on the existing one, opposite ends. And what you can do is use what's called like a push-pull method. You have the nice big size bolt here. When you knock this out, you're going to put the bolt through, you're going to put a knot on the end, you're going to spin this, I'll show you when I get there. You're going to spin it to a point where you have contact to the knuckle, and then you're going to use either a ratchet or an impact, and you're going to end up driving the bolt through, and it will push the hub out, and I'll show you how that works. This one. After we hammered out the 2 studs, we put the bolts in here, I think, and you put the bolt through and you put a nut on the back end of the wheel hub, and you put one on the top, bottom. You got to put it where you can get part of the knuckle somewhere solid, because you're going to end up putting impact on here, and the bottom you can alternate between the 2 to kind of rock it and pull it out. So we're going to do that right now. Now, as you can see, that's pretty rusted in there, so it ends up creating like a little mini weld in there with the rust, and that's why it's so hard to get out. And using this 2-bolt method is the easiest way of removing this wheel bearing. You can see how corroded this is. Okay, now when you put the new wheel bearing on, you want to make sure that the spline's lined up with the CV shaft, and you also want to line up the 3 bolts on the bottom, on the back here, with the 3 bolt holes on the front, on the knuckle. You have to go around and tighten all the bolts up a little bit at each time to suck the wheel bearing hub assembly back in. And you gotta make sure that it's in all the way and tight. Just have to go around the 3, like I said, all 3 back and forth till it's in. Okay, now that we got the wheel hub all nice and tight, all the bolts are tight on there, we're gonna put the CV nut axle back on, the axle nut. And then after we put the axle nut on and tighten it up, then we put the rotor back on, the caliper back on, and then the tire back on.